like to introduce our next session, which is the roundtable by the founders. Let's hear from these dynamic founders on how they are building their brands and businesses, navigating these unprecedented times with new thinking and ideas in collaboration with employees and customers. Each of these businesses are unique and represent three different industries. Each of these ventures are also represented by women leaders who are blazing new tales and trails. This session will be moderated by Dr. Madan Mohan Rao. Madan, I hope you're on.
Yeah, I'm here. Somebody has offed my video. Can you ask them to switch it on?
Okay. I think you have the co-host rights. You can switch the video on. Okay. All of you have the co-host rights, so please keep your videos on. He's the research director at Your Story Media and charter member at TIE Bangalore, a graduate of IIT Bombay and UMass Amherst. His interests include innovation, knowledge management, and entrepreneurship. Your Story is also a media partner, and Madan's been very actively involved with us uh, as part of the Entrepreneurship Conclave. Fun fact, he has visited 19 countries so far and can't wait for the pandemic to end so that he can visit them all again and then cross 100. I hope you can do that, Madan, soon.
I hope so.
His hobbies are appreciating world music, jazz, and craft beers. So now we come to introducing our founder leaders who are here today. The first introduction is for Anu Acharya, who is an entrepreneur and has been at the forefront of genomics for over 20 years. She's the co-founder and CEO of Map My Genome. Under her leadership, the company has been achieving several milestones, awards, and honors. She's written a book on poetry called Atomic Pohe, and it'd be great to understand what that is, Anu. Fun fact, she loves tea so much that she has an Instagram channel dedicated to it. So I think you can see you can see the picture. We just pulled it out of Instagram, and those who enjoy tea can, follow her channel. Our next founder speaker is Shruti Shibulal. She's the CEO and director of Tamra Leisure Experience, a responsible hospitality group that is focused on harmonizing profitable ventures with people-centric and planet-forward practices. Shruti, who is passionate about conservation and human capital building, works closely with non-profit initiatives that strive towards environmental protection, education, skill development, and gender equality. She's a young global leader of the World Economic Forum. Fun fact, she's a Star Trek fan. So Trekkie, and one of her favorite books is Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Welcome, Shruti, to the conversation. Who's the fourth generation entrepreneur, currently the CEO of Kurlon and vice president of CII Karnataka. She's one of the youngest under 40 to have got the role, and as a woman. She has a BE in Electronics and Communication from Manipal Institute of Technology, a master's degree in Engineering Management from USC, and an MBA in Innovation and Entrepreneurship from UCI Paul Mirage School of Business. Fun fact for Jyoti, in 2002, Jyoti founded and captained the women's swimming team at her alma mater, Manipal Institute of Technology. So 3 interesting women with 3 interesting fun facts. And over to you, Madan, to lead this session. And we're looking forward to this exciting dialogue.
Thanks, Pooja, and everyone at Unfold Consulting. And on behalf of all of us at Your Story, welcome again to this panel discussion. Special hi again to our panelists. The other personal connection I have to all of them is one, I was in the room during the launch of Startup India when Anu Acharya was on stage and she took a selfie with the Prime Minister. And this came on the front page of all newspapers. Anu taking a selfie of the Prime Minister with her in it, of course. That's fantastic. Secondly, Shruti runs a fantastic estate called the Tamara by Coorg, and I spent a very romantic weekend there once. So I'm also her customer, not just a moderator for this panel. And Jyoti, I want to tell you that for generations, our family has been sleeping on Kurlon mattresses. So we are It's a very nice,
Wonderful.
strange level of connections we have here. By an amazing coincidence, by the way, yesterday I got this book for review. It's called Intrapreneurs by by Susan Foley, all about entrepreneurship, etc. So maybe this is a sign from the universe that this is a very hot and interesting topic. So this is a founders panel, founders family panel. So I'm going to begin my first question with asking each of the founders about the innovations they first started off with and where they are today. So let me start with you, Anu. You are in the genomics space. How did you begin with the first idea, and what are some ideas you have in the pipeline for today and tomorrow and the road ahead? Anu?
Sure. Thanks, Madan. I started off clearly 20 years ago with mostly doing things on the bioinformatics and genomics front. We ended up doing a lot of, we did 3 acquisitions and ended up doing many things for the pharmaceutical and biotech world. 7 years ago, we started more on the consumer genomics front, which was more coming up with a product called Genome Patri, where we send it to consumers and consumers take their samples and then we give them a 100-page report and give them instructions on, not instructions, but whatever, recommendations on what they can do. But I think in the last 1 year, I think we are now at a stage where we are doing many other things as well, including clinical genomics, but more importantly, we are present at the airport doing COVID testing, we are doing sequencing, we are doing a bunch of things. So that's a very briefly where we started from, doing software products to now being a 24/7 multiple labs across India and across the world. So
Thanks, Anu. You're in the news a lot every time you announce something about COVID and airport and all that. That's great to see, very inspiring. Since this is a conference about entrepreneurship, my next question to you is what are you doing to get ideas from employees? Either small incremental ideas or the next big thing. What do you do to get ideas from employees?
So I think employees and customers both, I guess, have been the source of ideas for us all the time. And I think the good thing has been that when you have a good set of employees who are extremely talented, but they're also flexible, especially during these times, then it's very easy to be able to get them to come up with ideas. And I think as a founder, my job is mostly to listen and give them the permission to go ahead and implement those ideas. So I think that's what we saw, that especially at a time when it was extremely hard to sort of work, in normal ways, and we had other things that we could do. I think the idea was for me was to be able to always keep open my ears and eyes open for anybody who's coming up with ideas, and we did that over simple things like WhatsApp, because sometimes you couldn't meet in person. Sometimes, but since June we started working in person, so it is mostly about being walking, talking, having a cup of chai, and you don't know where the next big idea comes from. So I think it is mostly about being open to both ideas and let some ideas fail. But I think, unless you allow for that ideas to come about, I think we'll never see that, new ideas coming from the team. And I think this year has been an extraordinary set of ideas that we saw. And I think especially during times when it is, there are lots of constraints. I think if you have talented people and talented employees, then I think they are the best people who can come up with ideas, because they are not necessarily thinking like you exactly. So I think that's where you want the ideas to come from.
Thanks, Anu. The founder has to listen. The founder has to be open, and that was emphasized in the previous session also by the keynote speaker from IIM Bangalore. Shruti, you're in a very different sector. What is your story? How did you get your first few ideas, and how do you carry on your innovation and idea pipeline? Shruti?
So firstly, hi everyone. Good afternoon. The way that Tamara came to be was with this idea of what hospitality could be, and especially particularly this concept of luxury hospitality. For decades, luxury hospitality was about beautiful fixtures, marble floors, dripping in terms of just high-end products and facilities within properties. And we really thought about hospitality in a very different way. As somebody who had traveled, as somebody who had appreciated sort of hospitality throughout my life, my belief was that hospitality was more to do with experiences. It had more to do with creating properties which were connected to the local, the people and the local environment and all of that. And bringing guests into that whole experience of being able to see and understand what was going on in that local place. So for us, that was sort of where this idea of Tamra leisure experiences came, and how our sort of style of hospitality came about. So a lot of our sort of idea generation is around that. How do you really bring this idea, these concepts which are very local, right, and bringing those experiences to the guests. So for example, our first property, the Tamarakurg, which you visited, is on a 180-acre organic coffee plantation. So for us, it was extremely important that, the luxury part of it wasn't that you were, surrounded by these very expensive, surroundings or anything like that, but it was more about how do you reconnect to the nature and the sort of the beauty of that place, and also sort of get a taste for what life is like on a plantation, what the process of picking your own coffee, grinding your own coffee, and having, creating your own blend of coffee. What is that experience? And for us, we believe that that was luxury, right? And over the years, we've even, we've had, ideas around this, even silence. For us city dwellers, luxury is actually in peace, right? And being in nature and breathing fresh air. And so, the way that we have, been thinking about this is that how do you bring those elements, which are our strengths, and those experiences to our guests and ensure that they have a wonderful time?
Wow, that sounds quite wonderful. Now, how do you make sure that you keep getting ideas from employees as well? You've had a very great launch with a lot of research you've done, your own creativity, insights, etc. Now, as you scale up, how do you start getting ideas from others also?
Yeah, so I mean, hospitality in no way is a one-man show, right? I mean, there's no way that you can create these types of experiences if you only have one good person. I mean, it's always a collaborative team effort, and there's so many moving pieces and parts to the whole story. And so by nature, it's a very collaborative sort of industry. And my belief is that the people who are in front of the guests and the ones who are speaking to guests, they are the ones who know the guests the best, right? So if I'm not willing to listen to them, then chances are I'm going to mess up, and our service is going to mess up. We're going to trip when we are trying to do what we are trying to do, which is to provide excellent experiences for our guests. So we've created, structures within the organization, processes by which feedback can flow upwards, right? So there are communication channels, open communication channels from me all the way down, and from all the way down up to me. So one of the things that we launched recently, for instance, is something called a share app. So the idea behind it was sort of like an internal Facebook for the entire organization. But one of the things that we do is also ask for ideas, and of course, anything to do with customer grievances, customer, um, any sort of even commendations, like any sort of good things which come out as well. And the idea is that we celebrate not only the good things which we've heard, right, the compliments that we receive, but we also celebrate the failures that we've had, and that in turn will hopefully sort of keep the energy going and make sure that people are continuously feeding us that these areas of improvement that we can then take up and improve upon.
Wow, celebrate failure. We'll come back to that a bit later, Shruti. Thanks so much. Now let's turn to yet another completely different sector. Let's turn to Jyoti from Kurlon. Jyoti, you are from the family business. You are third generation, we believe, but you're taking the company to completely new directions. So let's begin with, almost every Indian knows about Kurlon. But what is the starting point? Where are you in your innovation journey, and what's next? Jyoti?
Thank you for having me on the session. So as you rightly said, in India, Kurlon is a synonym for mattress. Mattress means Kurlon, Kurlon means mattress. So our product innovations in over the many decades that we have been in business include things like Curlopedic technology that gives you a full body support, MSI technology that manages the spring so that your partner gets undisturbed sleep, and the straight technology, which is for a sag-free comfort. But today, we are moving from being a mattress company to a company that gives you a holistic sleep solution. We have products like the Suta bed, which has levitation controls that can move your body in the most comfortable position, as well as sleep aids for you to monitor your sleep patterns throughout the night. We are constantly innovating not only in product, but also in process as well as consumer experiences.
And Jyoti, how are you carrying on this innovation pipeline in the future? Are you getting ideas from some of your employees as well on some of these technologies, applications, customer needs, designs, and so on?
Absolutely. I think being a brand from India, we have learned over the years that the best ideas are homegrown. And starting last year, actually 2019, we had our first round of FGDs, focus group discussions. At that time, me along with the HR team, we traveled across 25 cities, pan India, over a period of 5 weeks, interacting with about 800 employees within the company. And during this time, we listened and we heard ideas that were fabulous and things that we would not have even thought about sitting in headquarters. We realized that these were the ideas that we needed to hone in on and develop and nurture and grow. So because of the pandemic, we couldn't really have in-person sessions last year, but that didn't stop us from having brainstorming sessions, virtual sessions. And just now in the last month, our HR team has completed their roundup of connecting with about 800 people pan India post the pandemic to understand what are the challenges they're seeing, what are the opportunities they're seeing, and how we can take these innovations and bring them to life within the organization.
Thanks, Jyoti. Now we've completed one round of understanding who our speakers are and how they've been innovating. Let's come to the next round, which is we're slowly coming out of this pandemic phase, sort of. I mean, thank God we're talking not just about lockdowns, but vaccinations. Tomorrow I'm taking my mother to get her vaccinated and so on. So the conversation has moved on. So my next question to Anu would be, what have been some of your lessons from the pandemic era, and are these going to carry on as we come out of it, or this is old normal is over and a completely new phase begins, or is there some continuity in your case, Anu?
So I would say that there will be continuity in some form, right? So, for instance, I think when we look at, when the pandemic first hit, I think the first thing that when we had done, for instance, was we allowed our teams to work from home, and they even came out with a new product while sitting at home. So I think that was great, because I think even now we have some employees who are sitting in other states, and they're still able to contribute effectively. And I think that's something that we wouldn't allow earlier. And I think now it's at least something that we are able to do, because I think they are coming up with products that are helpful for customers. So we continue to do that. So one is that we will continue doing some amount of flexibility when it comes to, uh, you know, the teams working from home. But at the same time, we are a lab. So for us, we really didn't have, 80% of our workforce still had to come and work. So I would say that, because of our presence in the airport, both now in multiple places in the airport, I think there will be some continuity, both in terms of not COVID testing, but we'll hope to continue some of that. And I think the great thing has been that the pandemic taught us speed. And what was previously we could do in a few weeks, I think became a few hours. And I think that's speed, I think, will continue. I think that has become part of the DNA now in the company. And I'm hoping that, I certainly hope the pandemic goes away, but the speed and the the systems we put in place to manage, for instance, I think, we suddenly started getting large number of calls, and so a toll free wasn't good enough. So we implemented in one day, we implemented a WhatsApp integration and made sure that there was a 24/7 support. So, lots of those kind of extraordinary speed at which we executed. I think that's the kind of thing that, whether it's the products will be different, the, certain things will be different, but some of that part will, I think, continue to remain as part of the soul of the company. So that's what I'm hoping that the pandemic has taught us, that the fastest to adapt and change, I think, will be the one to survive. And those values, I hope we'll continue to keep moving forward.
Thanks, Anu. Yes, I think we all agree that the pandemic has forced us to do extraordinary things. In your case, Shruti, I guess the pandemic in some ways has been devastating. I mean, conferences normally happen in hotels, offsite retreats like what we organized would have been at a resort like yours. But now hopefully things are improving. But what did you learn? What were some innovations you came up with, practices during the pandemic era, which you may carry on now or which you may drop for now? What's your story, Shruti?
Yeah, so of course, I mean, the pandemic was extremely damaging to the entire tourism industry. One thing, though, in India, which has been surprising, has been the recovery of the resort businesses. Business hotels, mid-segment hotels, are still sort of, there's still time before they will fully recover. And I think that there was the initial study said that nothing's really going to recover fully till 2023, and that's still very much the case, I would say, in those segments. But leisure business, which is any sort of business which is within driving distance of these major cities, such as Coorg, such as Kodaikanal in our case, are doing exceptionally well. And I think most businesses who are in that space are actually doing really well. And so it's great. It's been wonderful to see that domestic travel has been supporting the industry in the way that it has these last few months. In terms of what we did during the pandemic is, of course, business came to a standstill, and there was a lot of sort of there was a lot of things going around that, right? Whether it was putting in place business continuity plans, whether it was crisis management, whether it was communications management, that was a huge priority for us. Cost rationalization was something that we did, which we absolutely are intending on taking forward. All of those exercises that we did in terms of cost rationalization is something it needs to continue. But the thing that I would say that was the best in terms of what we were able to do during the pandemic was our use of technology, and the way that we were able to think of how technology was able to influence the way that we do business, both in terms of our guest facing communication, but also in terms of our internal communication and processes. It was something which I think as an industry, of course, has been it's been on the back burner. It's important but not necessarily urgent, and so there was probably not a lot of attention being paid towards it. In our case, technology is a strength within the group of organizations that we belong to, and so it was actually a great time for us to sort of be able to really focus in on it and think about how could we use technology to better ourselves operationally. So for instance, a lot of our manual checklists that we do, and in hospitality, in hotels, there are hundreds of logbooks and manual entries which are happening. We've started to move all of that towards digital entry and trying to make it as easy as possible to do that, rationalizing the lists themselves, and using the data which is there far more effectively. So that's been huge. I think it's changed the way that we are looking at our data, and the way that we're going to be able to leverage that data for future use is it's huge. The potential is enormous, and that's something that we absolutely want to continue on. The way that we think about technology and the way that we apply technology in sort of every part of our business.
Thanks, Shruti. Digital acceleration is a theme that we shall come to again in this discussion afterwards. Let me turn to Jyoti now. Jyoti, in one of your preview articles, you mentioned things like Kurlon 2.0, very interesting stuff. So tell us about some of the pandemic changes and what will carry on in the future. Jyoti?
Absolutely. So being a 20th century company, digital transformation was the buzzword in the organization, starting a few years ago. But I think the pandemic really forced us through to that next level, because during the pandemic, we were all physically apart, yet virtually connected. And when it was a matter of survival, this caused quick adaptation and use and leveraging of technology through contactless payments, touchless purchasing, and real-time order tracking. And this really enabled the continuity of business. Through the pandemic, every day we were trying something new. We were using technology in a different way, which had never been used before. We were challenging ourselves. We were challenging our team members. We were challenging our channel partners. They have been, through this journey, kind enough and very favorably to take this journey along with us. And it came to a point where we didn't recognize the Kurlon we were part of anymore. So we said, it's time to give ourselves an update, and said, it's time for Kurlon 2.0. And when we say that technology has changed the way we have experienced products, some of the changes that we've done will definitely stay. But more importantly, technology has bridged the gap between physical and digital experiences. Out-of-box thinking really challenged us on how we could serve our consumers, whether it was adapting to virtual inspections, having our channel partners meet on a Zoom call, or even taking the product to the consumer. So if I may, I would like to share a short video here. And seeing is believing. What you see speaks 1,000 words, right? So this was an idea that the team members came up with. They said, why don't we take the product to the consumer? And hence, Kurlon on Wheels was born. And this is our first mobile store. And this was doing the rounds in Mumbai the last month. And it's basically a truck that pulls up into the community, and people can go inside, experience the products. We maintain the highest standards of sanitization and keeping it clean. And I think bringing the product to the consumer to this level would never have been possible without the pandemic, because there is still that touch and feel experience, because mattress being a personal product, you want to touch it and feel it before you buy it. And this actually gives the consumers a complete experience of the brand, of the product, of our offerings. And the safety of their own community, with the convenience of having the product right in their backyards. And it's wonderful. It's a completely new opportunity that we would have never even thought about. So this is a little bit something from our side. Back to you.
Thanks, Jyoti. Wow, we heard some new things today. Mobile sleep van, sleep technology, Kurlon 2.0. A lot of good takeaways from this conference already from this round of questions. My next round of questions is about this founder's mentality. We just had a presentation a while ago on what is the founder's mentality. So I want to ask each of you now, how do you define the founder's mentality in each of your companies? Are they a value statement that you've captured it in? Is it a way you behave, you carry yourself in the company? What is the founder's mentality and how do you carry it through? In your case, Anu, let's start with you.
So I would say founders' mentality is, getting things done, basically. If somebody, if you can create that sort of environment for the rest of your employees. And so I think the most important is getting the right set of employees who can do things and can get things done. But the second, I think, is to be able to give them that freedom to be, or empower them to be able to make those decisions. Because I think as a founder, there are a few things that we can do that large organizations, for instance, are, they find it harder because there are lots of, steps of approvals and other things. So I think if the same thing can be done at different levels of the organization, then I think that speed of execution becomes extremely fast. So I would say that, if we allow that to happen at multiple levels, so I think make sure, one, that there are very few levels to begin with, so that, there isn't much to traverse through the ladder, or rather, I would say the hierarchy. And the second is to be able to make sure that, if any approvals is needed, that can be quickly done. And you don't have to have a very complex procedure to be able to get things done. So I would say that that's one of the key important things, that if you have the right set of, key set of employees who can do things the way a founder would have done, I think that's the important thing. So getting, hustling and making sure you get things in the right way done, and make sure, of course, that, that you give them that empowerment so that they don't feel that they need to constantly be, watching out for, hiding their, whatever mistakes if they had to do. So I think it has to be open, it has to be transparent. And I think that's the way you can get other employees to be able to contribute more effectively. The other thing I would say that, when you look at it from a founder perspective, or getting that mentality, is to make people feel part of that whole journey. So, one of the things, for instance, that I feel that maybe, we expanded very quickly around this time. And if we did have the right set of the team members to be able to do that, I think it would be very hard, because we are now running 24/7. It's not like we can micromanage. So I think getting each of the senior members to be able to watch and nurture their teams on their own, to make sure that they can effectively manage, because it's managing multiple types of organizations. I think that's what we realize, that getting them to be able to, again, create that level of nurturing for their other rest of the people is extremely important. So uh, getting sure they can get things done, making sure that they feel empowered. And three is incentivizing them, not just monetarily, but to be able to recognize them in ways that will allow them to also do the same thing for their team members as well. So those would be some key areas that I would say.
Thanks, Anu. How about you? In your case, Shruti, what are some values you would say are the founder's value, and have you institutionalized some of them in your company?
Yeah, so I mean, I have to first say, a lot of what Anu said, I agree with, all the points that she mentioned. In terms of value system, I think that has to be driven from the founder, right? And those ideas are, I think founders also, we are the ones who sort of have that initial vision, right? I mean, we're the first ones to kind of come in with that vision of what we believe the organization can be and should be, and is, moving forward in that way. So I think that perspective is extremely valuable, and I think as founders we often will put in a lot, there's a lot of heart that goes into it. It's not just like energy and time and all that other stuff, but there's a lot of, real passion which goes behind it, which I think is very difficult to sort of remove from this founder, from the founder. You kind of go in with that drive, and that cannot be underestimated. I think the drive is it does, organizations I think can be, there's make or break when it comes to that kind of thing, and the passion is extremely important. Value system, of course, I think is the other thing. In Tamara we have a very strong value system, and that's a value system that I inherited from my family probably, and that's the same kind of value system that we've taken forward. So for instance, things like transparency, things like corporate governance, these are things that I truly believe in. And so I've ensured that our organization, the way that the processes are set up and the way that people are sort of brought in, these are the value systems that they also understand and they go forward. Having said that, I think one of the biggest challenges of this is, how do you ensure that your employees feel that sense of ownership? And I think Anu also, you kind of touched upon this a little bit, the sense of ownership, to bring that about in each of your employees it's so important, right? They need to, as much as I feel ownership over my organization, it's important that they also feel ownership over their work and their outcomes. And so the rewards and recognition programs, those have to be aligned to specifically that. And then of course, one of the challenges of this whole thing, I think, is that when you are a founder driven organization, I think that people often, if they don't have sense of ownership over the organization, they tend to be propelled in their work by trying to make the founder happy. And that's something that I actively try to avoid in our organization. It's very difficult to do because, people often, they associate the founder as the organization, and that's not necessarily true. In my case, I would really like Tamara to be an institution, not not a person. It's an institution. And so it's really important that you constantly reinforce to your employees that they need to behave, and they need to come up with ideas which are best for the organization, not just trying to make the founder happy. And it's a tricky balance, and it's something that I have found challenging at times, but it's definitely worth it if the intention is to create this long lasting institution.
Thanks, Shruti. Those are two great points right there. Go beyond the person to the company and also have some continuity with family values, such as you mentioned, transparency and governance. Now, in Jyoti's, what are some of the value systems in your case? You are part of a generations-long family business. So, what are some of the values that are carrying on? Have there been reinvention of some values, perhaps, Jyoti?
Yes, absolutely. And again, one picture is worth 1,000 words. So we have a new culture, and that's culture with a K, where every morning, the entire organizations, either through physically or virtually, we take a Kurlon promise. And this is where we create ownership at every level in the organization, where we're promising to uphold the vision and values of the organization. And as you see here, it's on our vision statement, making it the best place to work. And we believe if we take care of our team members like our own, they in turn will take care of the company like their own. Of course, it has gone through a lot of changes. And as you can see, our new value system on the bottom, it talks about discipline, accountability, ethics, customer-centric approach to think big, and to innovate with enjoyment. I think enjoyment has been the most important new aspect that we've brought in, because it's no longer work-life balance, it's work-life integration. Whether you like it or not, once we have a company phone, you can't turn yourself off. But it's understanding how you can facilitate people to continue to work in spite of being at home, accessing remote work possibilities, and so on. Further to this, We are also engaged with community where we involve our team members to be part of it. And I think this involvement creates that engagement and being part of something that is exciting. Being part of the journey is part of that founder's mindset that we do bring. And lastly, from the CXO level, we believe each leadership team member is a CEO. We have 3 E's to be in charge of. We are the Chief Excitement Officer, we're the Chief Engagement Officer, and we're the Chief Empowerment Officer. And that's how I believe Kurlon 2.0 is going to take the journey forward.
Thanks, Jyoti. I like your 3 E's framework. Before we come to the last round of questions, I want to thank the audience for taking part in the polls as well. I posted 3 questions in the poll. One is, the innovative practices and tools we created during the pandemic will carry on for the future as well. True or false? And I see that the audience has responded 66% true, and the others are false and not so sure. The second question was, most of the suggestions we got from the employees during the pandemic were for cost cutting, 46%, health and safety, 23%, new business products and services, 27%. So good, innovation comes at new products and services second. And the third question was, after the pandemic is over, all future decisions about work from home, about coming back from work from home to work in the office, these decisions will be taken by business leaders, employees, or some combination. So most of you, 93.6% think that the business leader must decide whether to come back to work or not, but only 3.9% think that employees also have a vote in this. That's very interesting, because in one of the preview articles, one of the speakers who spoke yesterday said this decision should be made by a balance between the manager and the employee. Some employees do want to carry on more working from home and maybe 2 days a week come to the office. So maybe there's a bit of voting that needs to be taken. Of course, it's very different for hospitality and healthcare sector, where you have to be in the front line. So work from home does not arise. So I think this question was a bit of a trick question. It depends on the sector that you're in. Anyway,
sorry, if I can just, there are 3 or 4 audience questions which have been posted in the chat box.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you how much time we have.
We just have another 7 minutes. So
7 minutes.
If we
Okay,
could
good.
take audience questions, it will be helpful.
Yeah,
thank you.
We'll do that. I'll come to that in just a second. I'm going to ask a very quick rapid fire question now to each of our panelists, which is just in 3 sentences. Give 3 tips to the audience on how to keep this culture of innovation going in the company. 3 tips, maybe 3 sentences. Start with you, Anu.
One, be open to, I think, allow for critical feedback across the company, because I think the best ideas come when there is no, when people take feedback as being positive. And the third is to be able to make sure that the ideas can make, they can be failures, and that it is okay as long as people are making ideas and learning from it. So those would be three things.
Great. How about you, Shruti? Any 2 new tips?
I think Anu she took all of my points, but yeah, I was going to say pretty much the same thing. I was going to say, listen, keep an open mind, keep open ears, just be actively listening for the feedback. Encourage everything to come through, right? So whether it is success or failure, encourage communication and create the tools to ensure that you are able to sort of do that. And number 3 is actually it's tools, right? I think we have a lot of tools which are at our fingertips these days, and there's constantly innovation which is there. And so I think just being mindful and educating yourself about these tools and ensuring that you're experimenting with them and trying what works for you, I think that's really important as well.
Thanks, Jyoti. I'm sure one of your tips will be to also sleep well, I guess. But what are your tips now, Jyoti? Let's turn to you.
No, we say curl on. We say let's curl on. So my tips would be to listen and to listen to all parts of the organization. Today with access to information, it's amazing the kind of things that people learn every day. Second thing is, don't be averse to failures. Look at them as learnings. Even Thomas Alva Edison went through 999 failures before he got the right combination for the light bulb. So never let failure be in the way. And most importantly, empower, and give the confidence to your team members to bring those ideas to life. It's an investment in your future. And the proof of concept really excites the team. And I think that can really be a breakthrough for the journey forward.
Very hard-earned lessons from all three of you. Thanks so much. Let's turn to some audience questions now. We've got a few minutes. Again, in rapid fire mode, let's take some of the common questions. There's one question on COVID has led to an increase in awareness about health, also about the environment. So what are each of you guys doing to look at environmental impact, environmental sustainability in your companies? Quick, just a couple of sentences. Anu?
I think for us, we clearly have very clear regulation when it comes to the material that we use, biomedical hazards and all of that. So that's taken care of. I think for most of the regular genomics work, it's not very polluting. But I think right now with all the PPEs and all of that, I think there are clear ways of doing that. And I think that's a little hard to reduce too much because of I think you do need to make sure that your employees are safe first. So we need to make sure that they have the right kind of protection. I'm hoping that at some point somebody will innovate and come up with biodegradable face shields and many other things. But until then, I think we will continue to follow the regulations that are there right now.
Great, thanks. Anu, how about you, Shruti? Any environmental innovations from your side?
So it's actually part of our entire organizational culture because we are responsible hoteliers. So for us, waste management, energy management, water management are sort of the basic things. We also look at community outreach and community involvement in our various, just a number of initiatives. And then, of course, like one of the things that we're focusing on right now, which goes back to creating economic viability when you focus on sustainability, is, for instance, looking at our water sustainability as an organization and considering the risk of not having water tomorrow, considering kind of where the planet is going. And hospitality as an industry, because we heavily consume water and we're a relatively wasteful industry, we look at these things very very holistically, and we're trying to address them as best as we can with a mind towards the future.
Jyoti, environmental impacts, innovations?
Absolutely. I think the lockdown gave us the much needed time to focus on things like sustainability, circular economy, as well as extended producer responsibility. And given that India is going to have 1.6 billion people and the country is not going to grow anymore within the next 5 years, I think it becomes very important for us to start having these conversations now, because we are going to be responsible for 20% of the world's population. That's not a small number. So we started looking at different things in our process. One of the things we saw is there was a lot of some dust coming from the rubberized coir manufacturing. And we partnered with a local company here in Bangalore to produce biocompounds, which are now molded into houseware and household items, which are then sold in our stores. So it's a beautiful circular journey that has come through, because we started asking, let's see what else we can do.
That's a fantastic response. Great, Jyoti, thanks. Absolutely, the last question now in rapid fire mode. I think a whole bunch of questions about technology. And since this is a digital event now, I'm going to ask each of you to pick one digital technology which you have in your radar and what you might do with it. Could be blockchain, AI, AR, VR, machine learning, analytics, chatbots, whatever. Pick one and tell us how you might use it. Anu?
Yeah, we use all of the above, but let me let me pick one. So one of the things we did, and I think that got a little delayed, was the blockchain integration. So we have integrated that with an Israeli company, and the idea is really to be able, because the genome is quite, one is it's private data, so we want to make sure that give consumers the right to keep their data private from the rest of the thing. So we've integrated it, so you can use the blockchain way of being able to order the test, but also view your listing based on a key that is there. So that's one thing that we are hoping that we will launch it now to the full public. We've been using it internally for a while now.
Shruti, one technology you want to use?
Okay, so I don't know how we've not done a lot of this, the things that you were mentioned, but one of the things that we are looking at right now is, for instance, using AI to better target our customer database and making sure that our communication outwards is more targeted, more appropriate for the for the people to whom that communication is going. But I would also just mention the latest tool that I was looking at just over the last few days is a collaborative marketing tool. I mean, these are tools which are free and just increase our ability to sort of communicate across the organization, build efficiency, and do things faster, which is a really important thing, I think, for organizations like ours.
Thanks, Shruti. Jyoti, in your case, what technology you want to use?
Well, we have been working a little bit on blockchain as well as AI, but I think the most exciting thing that is coming in the months to come is related to AR. We are very happy that people have upgraded their systems, upgraded their phones, given given the new cameras that are now available on people's phones. It is letting us take product right into your living room. Let me just leave it at that.
Thanks, Jyoti. We had another conference last week, the Pune Design Festival, and they ended on the same note. The future is immersive technologies, AR, VR, whether it's hospitality, home consuming, even food, things of that sort. Healthcare, definitely. We are now out of time. Officially, I want to thank Anu, Shruti, and Jyoti for a fantastic session. Thanks to the audience for all their questions and taking part in the polls. Pooja, back to you. And just a quick thanks again to all of you. Thanks, Anu, Shruti, and Jyoti.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.